make sure you charge the right amount. So you figure out, let's say, what you need to charge, and then you make sure that is reflected in your agreement. Because when you sign that agreement, it's really hard to walk back what you said or try to up the price. So you need to make sure ahead of time you really know what you need to charge to make your profit, to be profitable, and give yourself the extra padding even, right? So if things go wrong, you got that buffer, and then you lock that in stone in your contract.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I am so excited today. We have a very special guest. His name is Jay Razzouk. Jay is the founder of ProScale Legal, and he is a fractional general counsel. And what Jay does is he equips online business owners with little known legal strategies and paperwork that most coaches, consultants, and mastermind leaders, they don't really know about. Jay's strategies increase their ROI, so return on investment, and enable high ticket business owners protect their legacy and scale their empire with peace of mind and joy. Please join me in welcoming Jay to the platform. Today, we are going to talk about how you can increase your profitability through your contract. So please join me and welcome Jay to our platform. Hey, Jay, how are you doing today?
Great, Suzanne. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about contracts.
Yeah, we're excited to have you and talk about contracts. So first of all, tell me exactly what is a fractional legal counsel. What does that really mean?
So when a business gets really big, like you think of all the Fortune 500s, they have a full-time general counsel who is like their main attorney, and he sort of triages all the legal issues, oversees all the legal problems, sort of like their go-to main attorney. But growing businesses, 7-6-figure businesses might not be able to afford one attorney. So I represent maybe a few different businesses as their sort of one attorney gets to know them really well.
Love that. That's great. And so you help us small businesses really make sure we stay in compliance, right? And address those legal matters then. So tell me a little bit about how to create contracts that are profitable. Tell me, how do we do that? And what does that entail?
So there's 5 things that I'm happy to share about on that. So first one, and this one I like because it really dovetails well with what is taught with Profit First. And which is make sure you charge the right amount. So you figure out, let's say, what you need to charge, and then you make sure that is reflected in your agreement. Because when you sign that agreement, it's really hard to walk back what you said or try to up the price. So you need to make sure ahead of time you really know what you need to charge to make your profit, to be profitable, and give yourself the extra padding even, right? So if things go wrong, you got that buffer, and then you lock that in stone in your contract. So that's step 1. Step 2 now is going to be make sure that you take steps to ideally front load money as much as possible. For example, if you charge for a service, we see this all the time now, right? Where services are encouraging people to buy it up front, like the whole year all at one time, pay it up front. And that's so much better because now you don't have to worry about providing the service and someone not paying you down the road or having the hassle of trying to chase money every single month. So charge ahead of time as much as you can, maybe a down deposit or the whole thing up front. That's a great way. And then you can incentivize that by giving a discount if it's paid in full. And related to that too would be think about the method of payment. Business owners have been in business for a while, know this really well, right? There's a big difference between having someone pay by credit card versus paying by check. And that's going to be, if someone pays by credit card, there's this whole system in place where someone can now dispute a charge on their credit card. And almost always the business loses. It is very hard to show you did everything just right and the customer is completely wrong. So you want to make sure you have a lot of coverage in your agreement that will protect you if there's ever that inevitable credit card dispute. So either avoid credit cards or make sure you have language in it that will protect you and that you have full authorization to charge that credit card. And I like making clear that the customer is still going to be on the hook, even if there's a credit card dispute. And I think a lot of business people don't even know this, Suzanne, that if there's a credit card dispute, and it goes in favor of the client, you could still try to seek money from them. It's not like, oh, that's your only avenue for payment. They still owe you the money, if you fulfilled your obligations and the contract says so. It's not like, oh no, I lost it, I can't go for that money. The credit card got refunded. But say it in the contract. You don't want people to even have this idea that they could just dispute the charge and you have no recourse.
I love that. That's really neat that you could say no refunds on the credit card.
Or, well, they can still do the dispute, but say like they still will owe you money no matter what.
No, that's really, really great. What else, Jay, can we do to make sure our contracts are profitable?
You could also add in terms where, like, if you actually have to go collect from them, like they owe money and you have to send it to the collectors, or you have to pay attorney to file a lawsuit against them, you have to go through this whole lengthy, expensive process. It's a good idea to say that then they're on the hook for that. So again, that will discourage them from playing hard to get. A deal's a deal. They either need to pay or they're going to have to pay you for trying to get it from them. So those are good ideas. Now let's go to the third one. Now this one might seem a little contradictory to what we just discussed. So you have to balance everything. And this is, you really want your contract to reduce friction. You don't want that client to be so excited to sign up for your process, for your product, for whatever you're going to do, your service. They see your contract, panic, and then walk away. And I tell you, I have people all the time who come to me and his attorney, even just recently. A person was looking to hire a contractor. Contractor gives the agreement and this guy starts going through it, looking and like, oh, wow, this seems really one-sided. Oh no, is my stuff protected? Are they keeping everything? I'm not getting anything. So I get hired as an attorney and then I have to rewrite the agreement. You don't want to scare your customers. You don't want to think, you can't be trusted, that you're, just so one-sided. You reach a point where it diminishes returns, you're losing business, and it actually doesn't even help you necessarily legally. I think there's this mindset that to be a shrewd business person, I need the most one-sided contract ever that's all in my favor. And that's just not true. Especially if you get to be a really big business, you have all this bargaining power and it's like, take it or leave it. You can have my services or not on my terms. A court is going to potentially say, hey, your contract is so unfair, I'm not even going to enforce it on your terms. You really could reach that point.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So
that's good to know.
Yeah. So not only are you scaring away customers, but you are also potentially bringing yourself to the point where your contract might not be enforced. So I like drafting my contracts to be fair and even-handed. And I think that's in my client's best interest. That doesn't mean that there aren't certain terms where maybe I will make in their favor. Again, like a collection clause where it might make sense that they be able to have their costs covered if they have to collect against a client. But generally, it's if they get something, my client gets something, the other person gets something. It really keeps it much more balanced, more fair, and looks much more reasonable.
Very, very good advice on that. And so with these contracts that are written, and I don't know if there was more with that, Jade, I don't want to cut you off with that. Where do these contracts tend to go wrong? What happens in the legal world where you're like, man, I wish I had that?
Where they go wrong? Oh, so like some of the big holes? Well, that actually leads to a good lead into point number 4, where I see a lot of mistakes being made with regard to intellectual property. So a good way to protect you, boost your profits, is to be able to maximize your potential to profit from your intellectual property. Most businesses, most of their money is locked in their intellectual property. That is your copyrights, your branding, your trademarks, your trade secrets. If you have patents in those, that's where your big money is. And then the rest of your business is monetizing those things. So you want to protect your IP. And so, for example, I work with coaches and they provide programs where people join for a year and there's a lot of content. So they join, download all the content. Last thing you want is that person to then now say, oh, you know what? I don't like your program. I want to quit. Give me a full refund. And you find out a month later that person is using all your content to build out their own program. And you say, oh, that must happen rarely. But no, I know like 3 people at least that this has happened to in just the past few months. Coaches where like their content just completely lifted, but those coaches' faces, their words, everything still in there, their names is crazy. Like these poachers have no shame. So I don't think any business is really free from this threat. But if you have good terms in your contract, you might be able to even specify, hey, if you use my stuff, Like, and you share it with even one person, this is how much it costs to share with one person. You owe me this for a license to share with a person. And then, yeah, be very clear on like, this is how you can use it. Only these limited purposes. You can't use it for this or this and that. You can only use it for, whatever your intended purpose is.
I love that. That's really true. That intellectual property, right? And being very clear and upfront that you can't use that, right? Anything else that we can do to make sure our contracts stay profitable?
Actually, when it comes to intellectual property, here's another one that a lot of people don't understand. Like if you're using independent contractors, especially, which, you hire someone to do a photo shoot for you as an independent contractor, you hire someone from the outside to make a logo for you. I think all businesses are using independent contractors. The default law is a person who creates something has the copyright in it. And so the law doesn't care who paid for what. It cares about who was the actual creator. So when you hire the independent contractor to take a photo of you, the photographer owns the copyrights in your photos. The person who makes the graphics for your webpage owns the copyrights for those images. So you need to make sure your contract's written well enough so that it transfers the rights from those people to you. That's what you're paying for. You want those rights. You ideally perhaps don't want the right to just be able to use those things. That we call that a license, permission to use it. You want the actual ownership of it. So you want a full transfer of the ownership of those copyrights to yourself. And attorneys use the word assignment, which is a different meaning than most people use that term in real life, right? We think of assignment like you got it. I spoke at a conference and I asked, does anybody know what the word assignment means? And like a little 12-year-old raised her hand and says, yes, I do, right? Kids think assignment means like homework or something you're assigned to do. But in legal speak, that means you're transferring the property. So you need to make sure you do that. You get the property from the person who's creating it. You get it back to you. Now, some people try to use the shortcut and call it works made for hire. Are you familiar with that term? Have you seen that in your contracts?
No, I don't think I have seen that.
So there's some limited types of copyrights that if you work with someone like a collaborative work or compiling things, making an atlas, that type of thing, that you can declare that to be a work made for hire. And even though you're working with someone on it, you'll have all the rights to it. The other time it could be used is in the case of employees. So it's nice that anything that an employee makes for you on the clock for you, that will be yours. There shouldn't be really any questions asked. That's going to be yours. That's a work made for hire. But I see a lot of people make the mistake of trying to use works made for hire in the context of independent contractors when it's not going to work. And here's something you might know, especially for those of you who work with independent contractors located in California. Just calling it a works made for hire, or using that term in your contract, can convert that independent contractor into a full-fledged employee. Like there's California law that says that. So it really is worth it to have an attorney carefully go through your contracts with independent contractors to make sure that, number one, you are properly handling the IP, you're getting yourself the IP, keeping it for yourself, and you're also not converting your independent contractors into employees when you don't want that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, this world is different, right? You used to be able to just do business, with the people on your street or in your community. And now there's so much, interstate commerce, right? Where we're going and doing business in multiple states. What are some things we need to look out for our contracts when they are in multi-state?
Yeah, that's a great question. Almost everything's multi-state now for sure. So one of the first questions that arises is, okay, whose law is going to apply? Is it you? The law of the state where you are in? Is it going to be a law of state where your client is in? You ideally want to have as much control over it as possible for yourself. So you ideally want to say it's going to be the law of the state where you are located, where you're primarily located. But if you're in California and you don't like California law, and maybe you can say there's some other state maybe that has a good claim for it, you probably, if you're, again, multi-regional, multi-state company, might have some sway in trying to pick what's going to be most favorable.
Got it. So like, hey, say you're in Texas, right? You're in California, you want things to be a little bit more, have more movement for you, right?
Exactly. But sometimes you don't really have much of a choice. Like independent contractor agreements, you can try to say it'll be governed by the state in which you are located. So if you are in Texas, you could try to say it's governed by Texas law. But if that person is located in California, California is going to say, we don't care. we're going to have California law apply to this contract because California wants to protect people in its state.
Love it. A lot of us and our listeners are small businesses, right? So, I know that's a big category now, small business, right? But as small businesses, a lot of them don't have that in-house legal counsel, right? So, they may have the attorney that they occasionally contract with. And Jay, your model's a little bit different because you are more of a fractional general counsel. Tell me what that means and how do we find one? What does that relationship look like?
So I wish I could say there's an easy database we could just go and find them. But the good news is overall, the trend in the legal system, I think, is going to be a more favorable one where more and more attorneys are leaving the big law firms. Because that used to be like the only place you could find general counsel is a big law firm, and they won't speak to you unless you pay them like $50,000 up front. They call that a retainer. Nowadays, you have more and more attorneys going out on their own. Technology is making it much more easier for us attorneys. And the best thing for attorney is to have a long-term relationship with a client. It's a lot of time and energy to keep onboarding new clients. So I think most attorneys who are in business law and in a position to help businesses are eager to find long-term clients. And so some of these attorneys post on their website, for example, that they have a retainer plan, and you could look at that. Maybe they'll have different tiers. So you could look at business attorney retainer plan. Maybe Google will bring that up, or you just again start looking for business law attorneys in your state. And if you don't see anything, call them. You could just start asking questions. Try to call the attorneys. Definitely, it's better to call because we attorneys get spammed with like these fraudulent emails all the time from like people in China. They want us to help launder money. And so we ignore a lot of these emails that just come out of blue. So call your attorney and see, like, they want a long-term relationship. I think they really do.
I love that. And it makes it easier too to not have to explain the entire story, every time something happens. So I think
Exactly.
from a business owner perspective too, it's good to have someone that, just knows you, right? Just been with you for like since the beginning of the business, right? It's important. Now, Jay, I know that you own ProScale Legal and Secure Scale, and it's a little bit different model. One is that it does the premium legal templates, the Secure Scale method. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that means?
Sure. So first, I started off working with the Fortune 500s, as you mentioned, even some of the biggest corporations in the world, help fix them after like billion-dollar mistakes and want to make sure that never happens again. So I learned the do's and don'ts of what we call corporate governance. And I've just wanted to take that and apply it in the entrepreneurial context. And then working with more entrepreneurs, working on a documentary on mental health, getting to understand human psychology better, really put together this framework of 5 things that just seem so universal. And I've not been able to add anything to it. This is how you can avoid basically getting a lawsuit, avoid getting in trouble. And so in a nutshell, it is like, number one, make sure you have the right structures in place. Structures I'm using really loosely. That's going to be like having the right terms in your contracts, having good contracts, having your intellectual property portfolio figured out, registering your trademarks, registering copyrights you need to, registering patents, having NDAs in place to protect your trade secrets, all these things. And then on top of your structures, you need to have the right community. And what I mean by that is you need to make sure that you are very selective with the people you work with, the people you hire, people you partner with, because that can make or break the difference. I encounter all the time, for example, people having major legal issues with narcissists. I even just today speak with someone who's just in a horrible relationship with a narcissist. It's almost like being in an abusive marriage where, everything is your fault. You're on the hook for everything. You're never good enough. I mean, it's awful. And you can't reason with these people. And your best bet is just cut the relationship off and have your attorney handle everything. You're not going to be able to negotiate, in a fair, reasonable state with these people. So you got to be careful and screen out troublesome relationships at the beginning. Your best contract is not going to protect you from these people. The next one is the right actions. You really need to take the right daily steps to protect yourself. And as you're growing, this becomes more and more important. You need to standardize your procedures and have policies in place to make sure that you are regularly doing what you need to do. And when a situation arises, you and your employees know how to handle that situation. And it's good to work with attorney on knowing what policies you need to have. Are they worded right? Do they follow the laws in your state and federal law? And again, the bigger you get, the more important this gets. So we have SCA. We're actually spelling a word here. It's going to spell scale. It's an acronym. So it's a secure scale method. The L is loss and liability limiters. Fancy word I have for insurance. Insurance is a great way for limiting risk. You need to work with someone to identify where the number one areas are going to get sued. If you have like a property, physical location where employees or customers are coming, you need general liability insurance. Do you give a lot of advice to people, telling them what they should or shouldn't do? You need errors and omissions insurance. If you're a professional, you need professional liability insurance. So there's all sorts of different types for whatever it is. And of course, when you employ people, there's like multiple different types of insurances that you might be required to provide. So that's why everybody should have an insurance broker on speed dial and meet with them once a year.
I love that. A lot of people, one of the first things that they consider is, becoming incorporated or LLC in order to protect limited liability. And I'm like, there's so many ways to pierce that umbrella. Really the best one is insurance. That's really what's going to protect you.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I do tell some people, like, it's okay to just be a sole proprietor and take the money you put to set in forming your business and put that straight into insurance. Exactly. There are definitely times that is going to be a lot more protection. And really, why would you form a business? To me, the number one reason is more going to be the tax benefits. You'll have some liability benefits as well, but yeah, tax is going to be your main one there. We have the one last, so we have Scale, we now need the E, and that's going to be enlightened mindset. And basically, what does everybody expect? Like at the end of the day, what do people expect? How do they really expect to be treated? And my philosophy is everybody expects to be loved. And I don't mean this mushy gushy love that, or it has become so meaningless. Oh, I love this, I love that. I mean like a love that really does care about somebody. You're really there authentically concerned for their well-being, their best interests, and willing to sacrifice at times for the relationship. I think that's a love that so many people are yearning for. And people really want quality relationships. So if you have that mindset where you really are caring about your employees, caring about your partners, caring about your customers, you're going to be providing their deepest desire and need, and they're not going to think twice about suing you. But when you act contrary to love, when people feel like you're taking advantage of them, that you are lying to them, that you don't care about them, all these thoughts bring it to a point where they feel upset, and then they will go speak to an attorney. They don't know really what the contract says, what it means, what rights they have, or what the law says. They just deep down feel like they've not been treated right, because I think deep down we all sort of have this idea of what love is. And then they're going to find that lawyer who will find some legal theory to make life miserable for you.
I love that. So really, just going back from the beginning of our conversation, Jay, was, making sure that it's a win-win situation and that contract, that your client's going to benefit, but at the same time, it's going to be a mutual benefit. The client will benefit, you'll also benefit, and that the contract really looks out for the best interests of everybody. And there's a real sense of caring for the well-being of that person that you're dealing with. That is really, really great advice. And a contract is, overall just having good intent and having the actions behind it. I know there are times that we've gone above a contract, just because that person really needed it, or that was that extra boost that had to happen for them to make it to that next level. And you're absolutely right. It's just, acting in the best interest of that person.
Well said. Exactly. Yeah. It is all about keeping that relationship. It's so fascinating. Even when we look at physics, we managed to split the atom. What did we find? Oh, we found there were these particles that came together. So we split the proton. What did we find? Oh, the proton is made out of other particles that come together. We keep splitting, and it just seems like at its core, all matter is just relationships. It is these things that keep coming together, that are bonded together. And what is a business? A business is relationships. Life has meaning only because of relationships. So if you want a successful business, start looking at your contracts ultimately as a mechanism for building better relationships. And if you make it one-sided, you're going to be turning away potentially good relationships or setting yourself up for bad consequences, damage to relationships down the road. Because then you're going to be tempted someday to, and I don't recommend anybody do this necessarily, to say, but the contract says. Now, sometimes there's the right time to say it, but if you keep using that as the crutch and just make someone feel like they're trapped and they're stuck in because they got this contract and now you can do whatever you want with them, that is, again, setting yourself up to get sued.
And who wants to have somebody that's in a contract that's not going to be very easy to work with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let them free.
Exactly. Don't pin the dog in the corner. What is the dog going to do then? Right? If it feels trapped. So don't do that. Make people feel like they have freedom, build that relationship, build that trust. And the contract should be about transparency, about setting the expectation so that when difficult times arise, it will guide you through that process and guide you to a resolution. And that is yet another way that then your contract can help boost your profits, because now you're not turning and churning your customers. You are going to make lifelong fans, even lifelong friends. And that is the most profitable type of client, the most profitable type of relationship.
I love that. Lifelong friends and lifelong fans, right? That's the goal of the contract, right? Is to really deliver on the promise that you promised and to leave someone else better off than where they were when they came to you. So very, very good advice on that, Jay. Very priceless kindergarten, everything you need to know you learned in kindergarten. And now Jay is saying that needs to be reflected in the contract too, which is very, very important. Now, Jay, as you've given us so many juicy morsels, so many really great juicy morsels. One of the things that we'd like to ask our guests is, if you could leave our guests with a piece of advice, it can be personal, it can be business. What would that piece of advice be?
You're not a shrewd business person if you feel like you have to stomp on everybody to get high, to get above. That is, I think, this false business concept that has crept into the business world from your narcissist, from your sociopaths. Someone who really wants a sustainable business, one that you will enjoy, one you will feel good about, and one that will really endure. If you want to be what I call an eternalpreneur, you will want to value the relationships, love the people around you, treat them right, treat them well. They will know when this is authentic and they will value you back, and you will not mostly need a lawyer. And when you do, it's just for preventative things and not for the expensive cleanup that can happen down the road.
Yeah, nobody wants to do cleanup, right?
Yeah.
Definitely not. Now, Jay, how do we reach you? How do we connect with you? How do we learn more about you and find you so that you can become our outsourced, general counsel?
So I'm really easy to find, and best way to reach out to me is on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Jay Razzouk, Jay, Razzouk, Razzouk. And I'm not worried about you finding another Jay Razzouk because I think I'm the only one on the planet. So love to connect directly, just chat, help you connect with other lawyers. I'm building a network of like-minded lawyers who are happy to help be sort of that fractional general counsel for scaling businesses.
I love that. And Jay has a very unique spelling of his name. It's Razzouk. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put that in the show notes so you guys can click on that link and be able to connect with him online.
Great. And yeah, look forward to seeing you on LinkedIn or Facebook.
Now, Jay, thank you so much for being our guest and just sharing your wealth of knowledge. I feel like it was so many juicy morsels that were shared here of things that, as business owners, we need to think about, with profits. There's also, our contracts and thinking about the people side. So very, very valuable information here. Thank you so much for being our guest today on the Profit Talk and sharing everything.
And thank you so much for having me, Suzanne. It's been a real joy and great questions.
Thank you.